Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. Happy Monday morning. Hope your Monday's off to a good start. Hope your week is off to a good start. I'll be your host, Alan, serving as COO of ICE and faculty member in our fitness athlete division here on Q&A Mondays. Before we get started, big thanks to ProMotion Physical Therapy in Florence, South Carolina for having our lumbar spine management course this past weekend, taught by Jordan Berry and Mark Gallant. Great to get down there this weekend and freshen up and just practice my lumbar spine skills, get some reps and friends, as we like to say. Jeff was up in Asheville, North Carolina at Specialized Physical Therapy teaching cervical spine management, and this was our last weekend of live courses for the year, so we are done for the year. We have some online courses wrapping up over the next week or so, but then we are done for the holidays, taking a break, resetting after the new year. All of our online courses will start again the first or second week of January. So if you're looking to get into one of our online courses, January 6th or January 13th, take a look at ptnice.com. They'll all be starting up then. We have some live courses starting right after the new year as well. January 11th and 12th, you can catch Justin down in Tulsa, Oklahoma for Total Spine Thrust. That same weekend, you can catch Zach, myself, Kelly, and Guillermo out in Chicago at Windy City CrossFit for Fitness Athlete Live. The weekend of January 25th and 26th, you can catch Jeff down in Orlando for the first cervical spine course of the year. And you can catch that same weekend Christina Previtt and Alex Germano down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at Delta PT for our Modern Management the Older Adult Live course. And then your second chance of the new year to catch Fitness Athlete Live will be in Houston, Texas with Zach and Kelly February 1st and 2nd at CrossFit Overtake. So that's what's going on after the new year, ramping up pretty quickly and then gets even busier from there. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about a viewer question from Sarah Grace via Instagram that said, what is the deal with these energy drinks, these supplemental drinks, things like Bang, things like FitAid, all these things that you can find in the gym, in GNC. What's going on with all these drinks? They all pretty much have the same recipe. What's the science behind them? Are they worth the time and money? So let's look at these drinks. They're all essentially the same thing. Sports performance drink, what have you. Bang, FitAid. Rockstar has one now, Monster has one now called Rain, and they all have pretty much the same ingredients. What are those ingredients? The ingredients are caffeine, a good amount of it, most of them around 300 milligrams now. Branched chain amino acids, BCAAs, on the label. Coenzyme Q10 or CoQ10, something called super creatine or water-soluble creatine. And then, of course, they're all pretty much 0 calories, so they have some sort of artificial sweetener. So they all kind of have the same 5 ingredients when you look at the label. Let's bust those down and look at those one by one and look at the research behind them and kind of put it all together and say, is this drink worth it? So first and foremost, all of them have a bunch of caffeine. Caffeine is probably the most widely researched and evidence-supported performance-enhancing supplement, right? A lot of the research, though, looks at really high doses all at once at caffeine. It looks at increased performance, both aerobic and anaerobic, strength, cardio, a number of different variables from a number of different studies supports the use of caffeine, but it supports it at one dose. It's a lot. It's usually somewhere around 4 to 6 grams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight. So for somebody like me that's sitting around 100 kilos, that's around 400 to 600 milligrams of caffeine all at once, which is like take it and then do the thing, right? So that's a lot. So that's even more than what's in these drinks. So keep that in mind. And we know that it does improve physical performance. It's very well supported by the research. Kind of the criticism of these drinks is that they're dangerous. It's a lot of caffeine all at once in a kind of easy to drink formula, right? It's a liquid. You can kind of slam it. And so people say it's dangerous. Yes and no, it is a lot of caffeine. You can get out of control quickly if you're drinking these all day long, obviously, and dealing with all of the side effects that come with being hopped up on caffeine all day long. But when we pull back and objectively look at the caffeine in a lot of different drinks, a lot of people will slam a large Starbucks coffee and then complain about all the caffeine in a Bang or in a FitAid or whatever, and not realize that in a large coffee from the coffee shop, there is 330, 400, even more than that if you are somebody that gets an espresso shot, if you get an Americano or a red eye or a black eye, something like that with multiple shots of espresso, then we start to see that the coffee that we're drinking every morning has 400, 500, 600 milligrams of caffeine as well. Obviously, for most of us, we're not slamming that, right? We're not slamming a hot coffee. If you do that, you're a different breed of human being. But we're sipping that throughout the morning, but still, we are getting a lot of caffeine throughout the day, even from coffee. So all things considered objectively, not too much caffeine in these drinks unless you are kind of slamming them one after another. If you're somebody that's drinking these throughout the day, then we are accumulating a lot of caffeine. But again, from a performance enhancement perspective, we need to be slamming a bunch of caffeine right before we work out, and we really aren't getting that with these drinks unless we're drinking multiple, unless we're doing something like combining these with a pre-workout powder or something. But overall, we're not getting the amount of caffeine that the research supports that we need to be going into training. So keep that in mind. Although it is a lot, it's not enough. It's not the minimum threshold that the research supports. So keep that in mind. But that's kind of the main marketability of these products, is that it's a whole bunch of caffeine, although again, objectively, not a lot. Let's dig into the second part, branched chain amino acids, BCAAs. Little side note here, I hate that these cans say BCAA amino acids. That's redundant. Branched chain amino acids. Anyways, branched chain amino acids, what are they? They are some of the amino acids we need to synthesize protein. Particularly 3 of the 9 essential amino acids are what we find in these BCAAs. So it's not a complete protein. If we look at the research, the evidence simply doesn't support that using these, supplementing with these, has any value if you're eating whole protein. It also doesn't support that supplementing with these in a calorie restriction will do any sort of thing to maintain muscle mass while you're maybe in a fat loss stage of your nutrition cycle. So the evidence out there isn't really supportive of these. It doesn't support their use supplementing whole food. It doesn't support using them in place of whole food, mainly because it's not a complete protein. Again, looking at the biochemistry, it's only 3 of the 9 essential amino acids. We need to get whole protein. Over and over and over again in the research says just eat whole protein and make sure you're meeting your daily protein goals, getting around 1.6 to 2 grams of protein, whole protein, per kilogram of body weight. Whether you're getting that from plants, you're getting that from meat, you're getting that from whey, getting a whole complete protein is vastly superior to supplementing with these branched chain amino acids. And so the reason that these drinks don't have calories is because they aren't whole proteins that you're getting in these BCAAs. So again, on that label, just like not enough caffeine, not enough protein to really do any sort of thing from a muscle point of view. The third thing these drinks advertise is creatine. Bang calls it super creatine. Monster, Rockstar have different names. Fit8 has a different name. There's a whole bunch of different drinks out there now. And it's basically a water-soluble creatine, and they put creatine on the label, and they try and trick you, and you think, creatine, I know I should be getting that. It's good for me somehow. And the evidence is that this just isn't the right type of creatine. It isn't the evidence-supported type of creatine that has any sort of impact on muscle performance. So without getting too nerdy, this is a type of creatine that is water-soluble, but is not bioavailable. It's a covalently bonded dipeptide that basically turns into really expensive pee. It's not the type of creatine that your body can absorb and readily use, and so it's not as effective as taking creatine monohydrate, a scoop of that, 5 grams a day, which is what the evidence supports, is probably the only evidence-supported supplement, not counting caffeine and protein powder really is a supplement, but creatine 5 grams a day, not worrying about loading it, not worrying about cycling it, but taking 5 grams a day of creatine monohydrate in powder form is pretty much the only evidence-supported method of taking creatine. Getting it from these drinks doesn't really seem to have any effect. A lot of criticism of labeling this type of creatine in these drinks as creatine is misleading. A couple of these Drink manufacturers have even been sued for false advertising over this, so I imagine pretty soon that will come off the label, just because it's not a type of creatine that we can use. So if you are drinking these for the creatine, stop. Just take 5 grams of creatine monohydrate. You can get a tub of that powder for like $8 off Amazon, and it'll last you 6 months. Way cheaper way of getting creatine, and the most effective way as well. The fourth ingredient that's common among all these drinks is something called coenzyme Q10. It's abbreviated CoQ10. This is a coenzyme, so a chemical that helps enzymes work in your body. It's particularly found in the mitochondria of your cells. It helps as an antioxidant as well to absorb free radicals, and it's basically something that helps your mitochondria generate ATP or energy. The claim here is that because it helps mitochondria make ATP, that it will give you more energy and help you feel less fatigued throughout the day. The research on supplementing with coenzyme Q10 is just not there for that. Looking at a couple of different studies and finding that folks who took it did not report feeling any less fatigued or having more energy. There is some interesting research from cancer research that supplementing with coenzyme Q10 can help slow the metastasis of cancer. But from a sports performance, from a mood, from a fatigue standpoint, the research is just not there on coenzyme Q10, so keep that in mind. And then finally, what all of these drinks mostly have in common, Fit Aid has a couple calories, but the rest of the drinks are all diet drinks. So they have an artificial sweetener. Most of them have sucralose. And so the argument here is that sucralose is interpreted by your body as sugar, and it can have effects on insulin sensitivity, spiking your glucose, triglycerides, all that sort of stuff. Some recent research that came out just in the past couple weeks, looking particularly at supplementing folks with sucralose. Thompson and colleagues 2019 is the name of that paper. We actually shared it through ICE social media a couple weeks ago. We find that sucralose appears to be completely chemically inert. The body just doesn't really recognize it. In this study by Thompson, they gave people a bunch. They gave people over 700 milligrams of sucralose, which is the same as putting 65 packets of Splenda in a drink, which is insane. So they went way above and beyond to supplement these folks with sucralose. They found no changes in body weight, no changes in the microbiome of the gut, no changes in glucose control, no spikes in blood glucose, and no changes in insulin resistance. So the body just kind of processes it as nothing, comes in, goes back out. Pretty interesting. At this year's sampler back in April, we did a little case study. We took Jordan Berry, we had him, we tested his blood, and we had him drink a Bang, and then we tested his blood again about 2 hours later. We wanted to look at his cholesterol, his HDL, his LDL, his blood glucose, before and after drinking a Bang. We actually found 2 hours later that his triglycerides were lower, his LDL was lower, his HDL was higher, and his blood glucose was lower. And so what does that tell us? Well, not a lot, because it's a one-person case study, right? That's not how research works. But what it tells us is that the body doesn't really recognize the sucralose in these drinks as anything. That being said, some people, some of you listening to this too, have a terrible reaction to sucralose and artificial sweeteners. It destroys you. You know what I'm talking about. So be careful. If you're one of those people, even though it's technically chemically inert, some of you just don't process it well at all, and keep that in mind, that it's not worth drinking these if it wrecks you from a digestive standpoint. So keep that in mind. But all things considered, sucralose doesn't appear to have any sort of real effect on our body, even at ultra high doses, 65 packets of Splenda, which is way more than you will find in one of these drinks. So keep in mind too, other sweeteners used. There is evidence for aspartame that it's a lot more caustic on our bodies than sucralose, but all of these drinks, all of these new drinks are sweetened with sucralose versus aspartame and some other kind of old school sweeteners that you might find in like a Diet Coke or something like that. So wrapping this all up, looking at what's in these drinks: caffeine, BCAAs, coenzyme Q10, creatine, supercreatine, whatever they're calling it, and then artificial sweeteners. What is the use of these drinks? From a performance standpoint, zero. If you're drinking these to get some sort of performance edge, don't. They're expensive, right? They're like $3 or $4 each, so keep that in mind. For one or two of these cans, you can get an entire tub of creatine monohydrate. They don't really have enough caffeine to hit that threshold that we find in the research to really support increased performance with aerobic and anaerobic performance. The BCAAs are worthless. We should be eating whole proteins, not trying to get BCAAs from a drink. The creatine is not bioavailable. It's also worthless. The coenzyme Q10 maybe has some effect on delaying cancer, but if you don't currently have cancer, that's not beneficial to you. And the effects of that coenzyme on reducing fatigue and improving mood and alertness, the evidence just does not support that. The sweetener doesn't seem to have an effect, so it's certainly better than drinking something full calorie or supplementing. Some old school folks still supplement with like dextrose and stuff before a workout, taking a whole bunch of sugar. So it's certainly better than that from a blood glucose perspective. But all things considered, you should not be taking these drinks for any sort of expectation of increased performance. Like anything else with caffeine, though, it does make you more alert. It does make you in a better mood. It's why caffeine is the most widely abused stimulant on the planet, right? Pretty much every human being drinks caffeine, whether it's in these drinks or it's in coffee or something else. So if you're using it as your caffeine source to kind of wake up or get in the mood to work out or whatever, then use it that way. Some folks don't like the taste of coffee, so these drinks taste a lot better. They come in different flavors. But overall, from a sports performance standpoint, the evidence just doesn't support that it's doing anything for recovery. From a recovery standpoint, the pillars of recovery still stay the same, right? Food, getting enough protein, getting enough sleep, enough high quality deep sleep, and then things like active recovery versus laying on the couch and watching Netflix all day on Sunday. So those kind of pillars of recovery still stand versus these drinks. There's a lot of gyms and stuff where they sell things like Fit Aid and I see some gyms programming where it says, minute 50 to 60 of the workout is recovery, cool down, stretch, drink a Fit Aid, because there's that association, especially in the CrossFit community, that Fit Aid equals recovery, and if you drink one of these after you work out, you'll recover better. The evidence simply doesn't support that. If you like to drink these, if you like the taste, if you like to get jazzed up on caffeine a little bit and get wild, then go for it, right? They're not harmful. They just aren't effective from a sport performance standpoint, so keep that in mind. So that's supplemental drinks. Again, they're all essentially the same. They all essentially have the same ingredients. Most of them are ineffective. Now, if you do slam 2 of these, you are hitting that caffeine threshold, but I would argue drinking 32 ounces of a carbonated drink is really not going to make you feel like doing anything too intense or too heavy. That's a lot of carbonation. That's a lot of liquid. I don't recommend that. So keep all that in mind. So I hope that helps. Great question, great topic. These drinks are everywhere now. Bang was kind of the first one to come out and advertise all these things, and now there are a zillion offsets. Fit Aid has been around, especially in the CrossFit community, for a long, long time as well. But now every gas station, every grocery store has 15 different brands of these high caffeine energy drinks with BCAAs, creatine, coenzyme Q10, all that sort of thing. So it's good to know what the research says, especially if patients and clients and athletes start to ask you if they should be considering taking them as a supplement or not. Direct them towards the staples: enough protein, enough sleep, enough active recovery versus relying on these drinks. So hope that helps. Great question. I will be back on here later this week to talk a little bit on Leadership Thursday, but hope you all have a great Monday, have a great week. See you all later. Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review, and be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.